welcome back to Whiton Mill for round number 2 of the Club 100 Sprint Championship in the lightweight category for us. Straight into it with the heats and the highlights from the 3 races that we had on this rather lovely but windy Sunday morning. Starting on the right hand side of the grid for this race, number 1, 14th on the grid, and we managed to get ourselves around the trouble at turn 2 at Crook and up to the hill so we can catch back up on the group in front of us. A little bit of pushing and shoving going into Inkerman. Wanted to try and cut back going down the hill and try and get the inside into the hairpin, but couldn't quite, and so we have to settle for where we are, although there's not the best of runs to the kart in front of us, and we're able to split it up the inside as we take that left-hander and come back down towards the hill, and 3 wide going through there, so 2 karts on the outside getting compromised lines, having to slow down more than they'd probably want to, and means we get to get one of those positions as we come towards the boot section. It would have been nice to get both, but we get the second one here, left the door open so we could slot it up the inside, and with a bit of an assertive move we get another one on Amy Reacher as we come to the final corner for a pretty good lap 1. And as we jump forward into later in the race, driver in front gets a horrible run through the hairpin at Ashby, and we're able to maintain a bit more momentum and get that position before the left-hander as we go down the hill. And that was about it for race number 1, heat 1. The gap in front was just a bit too big by the time we'd made it through the traffic, and especially at Whiton Mill where the tow is so powerful and it was a windy day, we didn't quite have what was needed to catch up with them. But not bad result for race 1 as we move on to race number 2, starting on P3 on the grid this time, and straight away sliding up into P2. And the plan here was to essentially see if we could break away at the front, push along, and use that advantage of being in the tow and having the slipstream, pushing the driver in front along to possibly try and break a bit of gap to the karts behind, and then see if we could sort it out in the last couple of laps. But didn't feel as confident in this kart, so we'd already lost the driver in first place, and then we get overtaken coming up the hill later on in the race, and yeah, just didn't feel as comfortable as we had done in race number 1. And again, going into the boot section, Mike Coppin sliding up the inside of us there. Mike was absolutely ballistic pace-wise on this Sunday, so again, someone that's way more experienced than we are in these Club 100 karts, and I was thinking, okay, maybe we could try and learn a little bit from Mike, but again, just drove away from us, didn't have the pace for it in this race here, and then get absolutely mugged going through Christmas, losing 3 positions in essentially 2 corners, so not good there. Seeing if we can at least keep on the back of this group until the end of the race, but that wasn't able to happen either. Ended up dropping back, didn't drop any further back from that point, but wasn't the best of races. Felt a little bit frustrated at the end of this one in terms of wanting to do better, could have been better. But with that, we move on to heat number 3, where we're starting on row 3, so P6 on the right hand side. And up to this point it had been reasonably solid, been 2 6th place finishes in heat 1 and 2, so with a solid finish on this one, we were thinking this could be sort of like a mid to back of the A final for this weekend, which would be good, seeing as kind of felt like the pace was there to be in that kind of position and kind of earned. So heat 3 didn't get off to the best of starts. The right hand side of the grid didn't get going as quick as the left hand side, so we lose a few places and managed to get a couple of them back as we go up the hill, but we've dropped back from 6th place and need to do some work to try and catch back up. So here we can see the driver on the left hand side kind of getting hung out to dry a little bit here. We want to try and follow through. We end up tapping the back of that driver in the blue suit, which kind of stopped our momentum coming down the hill, meant that we needed to give the space on the left hand side as we started coming back towards the left hander, but a compromised line from the driver means that we can get up the inside as we go back down towards the left hand hoses and we make that move. But we've lost some critical time to the drivers in front and need to try and make that back up, which we do a little bit later on in the race as 2 drivers have a bit of a coming together. One of them gives us a free position as a slow after being forced into the grass, and we eventually catch back up to the drivers in front. We can see lead driver is kind of checked out at this point, but we're making the move up here, and that's us through to 4th at this point. Now, we left enough room for the inside there, I thought, but as we come down towards the hill, something goes wrong somewhere and we end up getting hit from behind, sent around, brought to a complete stop and start tumbling down the field. So at this point, okay, we're like, this is frustrating, but we can possibly try and salvage something as we lose another position going to the left-hander with no momentum. We lose another position going into Ozier's, and we've got no momentum coming off of the corner there, but we do have some momentum as we go on to the final lap. So taking as much speed as we can through the left and the right of Oblivion and Crook, which means as the driver in front takes himself a little bit too wide coming out of Crook, we're able to slip it up the inside and we're protected by the yellow flag at Christmas from any attack back on ourselves. But that will be the end of the race. A really annoying end to the heats, and it means I'll be starting at the front of the B final. So P6 for the B final, and in a frustrating way, having looked at the points after Heat 3, even if we'd stayed where we were before being taken around, that would have put us at the back of the A final. But we can't do anything about that now. I just need to focus on getting through the traffic as quickly as possible and trying to get into the top two, because the top two from the B final will progress through to the A final. So up one position already by the time we get to Christmas, trying to hunt down the P3, P4 driver in front of us. P1 has already built up a little bit of a gap. Second place is starting to pull away a little bit, and that's not good for us considering we've got two karts between us and the lowest place we can afford to finish if we want to move into the B final, into the A final rather from the B final. So that too, P4 goes for a move up the inside, doesn't quite come off, bit of contact, tried to hang it around the outside as we go through the kink after Christmas, but wasn't really anything doing, couldn't keep the momentum, so we tucked back into P5 and look to see what we can do. Now end of lap 2, coming through the final corner, big old monster curb, driver clips that one, really hurts their momentum, and we had nowhere to go really, so we sort of just tapped from behind, losing place temporarily into P6 but back into P5 because the driver that was trying to go around the right hand side of us into turn 1, that move's never going to come off, so we end up coming from really far back, knowing that we need to try and get past that driver as fast as we can. I didn't really have any expectation he was going to leave the space because I was coming from a long way back, but he did, and I was able to slip it up into P4 and start hunting down third place. As we can see, going through Oz's already is P1 and 2. They're just working together now because they know that as long as they finish where they are, they're into the A final. We get a good run coming off there, and I'm looking to try and see if I can get it up the inside of the first part of boot, but that's not really there. Can't really hang it around the outside of the second part of boot. That's not a move that can really happen, so we tuck back in and we jump ahead now to lap 4, where it's still on the bumper of P3 again, getting a good run out of Ozius. Felt good coming through there this weekend through the boot, and it's time to go now. So we go up the inside of the second part, but I don't think he expected that move coming, so we end up coming together a little bit there, hurts our momentum, and even with running wide a little bit, that narrow line going through the final corner means that we get absolutely mugged coming through the first part of the lap, going on to lap 5, but we're able to get one position back into P5, but momentarily into P3 and then back down to P5, so not a good series of corners there. Probably getting a bit desperate of wanting to try and get past into P3 to try and chase down P1 and 2, but nothing really happened for a few laps there. Myself and Preston in the kart in front trying to hunt down that small gap, and he goes for a big old send into Christmas corner, runs a little bit wide, which is something I took a note of there, but we were able to follow through as the driver that's now in P5 left a big old gap for us to come through to. Thank you very much up into P4, and skipping forward onto lap 11 now, so final 2 laps of the race we're in P4, and the defensive driving's coming out now. We've got no hope of getting into the P2 unless we can get into P3 and one of them has a penalty up in front, so Preston goes defensive into Christmas corner, runs really wide, and we're able to keep momentum, go around the outside of the kink and the inside of Inkermans. And as we come down the hill, we lost a bit of momentum, which meant there were some karts up the inside of us, so we had to leave them space. But we're able to, rather than lose 2 positions for the 2 karts, only lose the 1 and tucking on the bumper behind Wilkins as we go into Osiers. Get tapped wide a little bit going through Osiers, but fair move. It was alongside, and in an effort to try and sort of keep the gap as small as possible, a little bit of understeer, so not feeling too hard done by there, just a case of trying to tuck back on. But in that exchange, Wilkins in P3 at the moment has managed to gap us a little bit, which going on to the last lap now is going to require a pretty mega lap if we want to try and get into P3 on the road. So Preston in front of us, going defensive again, so we whip ourselves out to the left hand side, and he goes deep just like he had done lap previous, so we go around the outside again, and I was kind of thinking risk reward here. I knew that I was probably going to have some karts coming down the inside because I'd lost some momentum, but in order to try and catch back up with P3, I was like, I kind of have to take a normal racing line here, so planned for it, got the cut back on the 2 karts that came through on the inside, and now it was just a sheer sprint to the line, trying to break down that gap and maybe go for something into the last corner if we could get a good run. Wilkins goes defenders there, going into the boot section, didn't need to go defensive, wasn't close enough, so that gave us a little bit of a chance because it slowed him down, but wasn't able to happen. As we cross the line, we do go up into P3 early in the race. Wilkins had got himself a penalty, but frustrating that we weren't able to get through the traffic quick enough to possibly be P1 or 2, but getting closer, so A final is the goal next time. But until then, thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a good one.